Celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting, 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Thursday, April 7th, 2016. And here are some of today's trends in the news. Start over there in Asia. So what happened? Shanghai was low. Nikkei up just a little bit. And Hang Seng hung a little higher. But the Nikkei is the big story, because that thing's been down several days in a row. Today was just flat. And China doesn't look so good. It's on a downtrend. And over there in Europe, everything down a little bit. Over here in the States, the Dow was down as much as 230. Closed down 175. Oil, I'm not going to tell you yet. I'll tell you, it's down. And gold had a nice day. Boop! Up almost $18. So, let's see what happened. U.S. oil prices surged 5.18% on Wednesday. Oh, that was yesterday. It was up 5.18% because the U.S. government reported a surprise draw on domestic crude stockpiles. Remember, I'm telling you, this thing is so manipulated, there's really no fundamentals. Here's the story today. U.S. oil prices fell over 1% on Thursday after industry data suggested a pipeline shutdown had not reduced crude flows to the U.S. storage base by as much as they expected. And it goes on and on and on. All this means nothing. But here's the deal. Oil was down. We had West Texas down. It was almost 36.69. And Brent was down 38.70. So he popped up a little bit. I'm saying this because they almost, if they closed that near their lows, they would have erased the BS from yesterday. So again, the fundamentals don't count. All it does is manipulation counts. So, U.S. stocks closed about 1% lower or more Thursday. But wait a minute. They jumped up yesterday. How come they went down today? Well, financials were leading the declines. Financials are leading the declines. The bank distress is greater than they're reporting. And not only in America, over there in Australia, they're facing a banking crisis ready to explode. You know, they're too big to fails, too. They got 4 banks running the whole show over there. And when things were ready to collapse back in 2008, they just did a different Ponzi scheme with a different name, but the same results. They boosted a failing market, and now that failing market is starting to fail again. And it's all over the world. I read what was going on in India. We know what's going on in China. So financials are leading the declines. So the Dow's down over 174 points. Again, it was down as much as 230. But the markets are on hold again because after the markets closed, here's the news that came out. Fed Chair Yellen is due to speak with former Chairman Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, and Paul Volcker on a panel hosted by International House. Yeah, the International House of Pancakes, man. IHOP. Big deal. Or they're going to BS more? You want to hear some more BS, Bernanke? How about Greenspan that says nothing, just like Yellen's a good protege? So anyway, fundamentals don't count. And neither do the headlines. Stocks bounce back as oil prices rise amid upbeat Chinese outlook. This is today's paper, the Financial Times, trying to boost yesterday's market rise with this cheap little line over here. Oh, upbeat Chinese outlook? But didn't I hear Lagarde come out a couple of days ago saying that they were worried about what's going on in China and having a global impact, a spillover? Hey, it's only prostitute work. Why should I get excited? They all do it. And to look at the deeper story, Angola seeks IMF aid amid oil price rout. Angola will turn to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout to help cope with its oil price rout that has hit its economy hard, joining growing lists of commodity-dependent African economies seeking assistance from the institution to weather the adverse economic climate. You know what that is.
Warning, warning, bullshit alert.
Weather the adverse economic climate by borrowing from the gang. Yeah, the IMF. They'll make everything just nice, I tell you. Look at the great job they did over there in Ukraine. You remember Victoria Nuland, our Assistant Treasury Secretary of State under Obama, formerly worked with Penis Cheney over there. Yeah, that Victoria Nuland. That the best route for Ukraine is with the IMF. And they're just in wonderful shape now. Oh, and so is Greece. But the story being, Angola's in trouble. Oil's in trouble. Financials are in trouble because the banks are overextended. It's not only in oil, it's in mining, it's in housing. It's across the board with all this money loaned out with these mergers and acquisitions. It's right here in front of us. What makes this story interesting to me, too, the announcement represents an about-face for the government that had previously rejected the idea of seeking IMF assistance. And it goes on to show how the Portuguese banks are really struck out over here because they loaned a lot of that money because that used to be a former colony. I guess they were bringing, that wasn't freedom and democracy, probably religion. That was what they were bringing to Angola. Those good old Portuguese, yeah, imperialists. So those banks are stretched out. And not only the banks stretched out, here in the USSA, student loan worries rise. So them students with degrees in worthlessness are stretched out. Check out this number. Defaults remain high as some borrowers can't be reached about payment plans. More than 40% of Americans who borrowed from the government's main student loan program aren't making payments or are behind on more than $200 billion owed, raising worries that millions of them may never repay. We're going to have to pay. The taxpayer is going to have to pay. It's $1.2 trillion that they're in debt. This is more than auto loans. You know, it's a tragedy. It's more than credit card debt. It's more than revolving home equity loans in the United States. About 1 in 6 are in default. Now, this is the best part of this story. Education Department officials, official assholes, we have to say that, note that some default loans are from prior decades, and unlike private lenders, the government is severely limited in its ability to write them off and remove them from the books, which means we have to pay for them. Here we go. But the official assholes acknowledge that a large pool of borrowers have essentially fallen off the radar. The Education Department has assembled, you ready for this? Quote, a behavioral science unit to study the psychology of borrowers and why they don't repay. A behavioral science unit. These people should be in a behavioral science unit in a mental institution. They're not paying because they don't have the money, and these bullshit colleges ripped them off with broken promises and inflated expectations, giving them degrees in worthlessness. I'll tell you what, they should get a job as a bill collector. Yeah, to go after these people that can't pay for their loans. Or they should get a job in a behavioral science unit. Yeah, why don't you start teaching behavioral science units in college as to why kids go so deep in debt and how you screw them? And we're going to figure out. And you know what this is? You know what the bullshit about is? You got to pay for this stuff. A bunch of wankers they're going to put together. Why can't they pay? We don't understand. Carl Salerno, an economist who studies higher education, is consulted for the private student lending industry, noted the government imposes virtually no credit checks on borrowers, requires no co-signers, and doesn't screen people for their preparedness for college-level coursework. Quote, on what planet does a financial vehicle with those kinds of terms and those kinds of performance metrics make sense? I'll tell you where. In the USSA, run by cowards, liars, freaks, and fools. Oh, the big news was March Madness, the NCAA. All this bullshit going into sports. All this money wasted in colleges, making an environment that's a lot of crap that prepares you for nothing. And why do they charge so much money? And kids getting out of school with $100,000 in debt. I wonder why. Well, we need a behavioral science unit to figure it out. Australian steelmaker Arium in survival talks. Remember I told you, look at the financials, follow the money. They can't pay back their loans. One of Australia's two biggest steel makers is engaged in last-ditch talks with bankers to try to avoid being put in administration after the rejection of basically $1 billion recapitalization plan by GSO Capital, a subsidiary of Blackstone. Yes, isn't that wonderful? Yeah. 7,000 people may lose their jobs. And on good news, Armenia and Azerbaijan peace that they announced a couple of days seems to be holding on, so that's positive. And on another good positive note for we the taxpayers of the USSA, and again to show our transparent president to Barack backtrack Obama, never keeps his word, Pentagon, U.S. may open more bases in Iraq. But there won't be any feet on the ground there. They'll just be bases, and they'll only be advisors. And you know what that is. It's more Obama.
That was bullshit.
Obama the murderer, just like the rest of them. But you liberals don't like to call him out because you're a bunch of cowards and your murder is better than the other one. Here we go, folks. Report says U.S. bombs killed scores of Yemeni civilians in Saudi-led strike. And you know what I keep saying. If you supply the guns for the murder, and you know they're going to murder somebody with it, are you an accessory to the crime? Well, according to Human Rights Watch, said the United States might be jointly responsible for war crime violations if it had participated, quote, in specific military operations such as providing advice on targeting, decisions, and aerial refueling during bombing raids, which we know that they are. And we've been reporting this. Saudi Arabia-led military coalition used bombs supplied by the United States in an attack on a market in Yemen that killed at least 100 civilians, including 25 children. Hey, but they weren't from Brussels airport. You don't have to put those pictures out there. It's not as bad. And don't mention the other almost 7,000 that have been killed. They're only Yemenis, man. It's only the poorest country in the Middle East. Listen to this bullshit. The United States is confident that the information that we rely and non-combat support we provide to Saudi Arabia and other coalition members is sound and provides them the best opportunity for military success consistent with international norms and specifically mitigating the potential for civilian casualties blobbed out frontman that Goebbels would love, Colonel Patrick Ryder, a spokesman for the United States Central Command. Yeah, that's for you. The best options for military success. You guys haven't had a military success since World War II, and you keep shooting your mouth off in this arrogant Goebbels lingo crap to cover up your excuses for murder. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's Trends in the News.